let's do some queer history over lunch. So I'm reading about the history of the NSA, this book called The Puzzle Palace by James Bamford. It's nice. It's from the 80s, and it's nice to read older books about the intelligence services because it focuses on their beginnings more than the more recent stuff, which can be helpful. And I found something here about a lavender witch hunt. And if you don't know about lavender witch hunts, it's like the communist scare. At the same time as they were hunting communists, they were also hunting gay people, because gay people were seen as liable to being turned by enemy agents because they didn't want to be outed about their sexuality, which did happen sometimes. It wasn't completely untrue, but it's said that the lavender witch hunt, which happened at the same time as the Red Scare by the same people, ruined more lives than the Red Scare itself. There were more gay people and queer people to be outed and to be destroyed, and it just cleared the ranks of the Federal Service of queer people. The worst of this being that one of the key people pushing this was Roy Cohn, McCarthy's right-hand man. Roy Cohn was secretly gay. He died of AIDS. Though he called it liver cancer. That was the common cover-up story. If you want to hear more about that, I wrote a book about it called The Queer Chapter, Sunset. It's free on my website, lexpelger.com. It's a graphic novel about AIDS and cannabis in the 80s, and it stars somewhat Roy Cohn and this lavender scare, because the history of cannabis and the coming out of cannabis is so linked to the coming out of queers. And so that's a little backstory that makes this story make sense, because the same thing was happening at the NSA. Their worst ever scandal hit the agency in 1960 when two of their analysts, who were believed to be homosexuals, defected to Moscow, which is a terrible thing to happen to an intelligence agency. And so after that was a McCarthy-type purge that followed, and dozens of NSA employees suspected of homosexuality forced to resign or were fired. So it's just terrible. It's terrible when you think about it. Then, in early July 1980, there was a man who was suspected to be gay, and he was working in Virginia. And this employee, instead of submitting his resignation or be fired like they asked, he contacted a famous gay rights crusader called Franklin E. Kemeny and said, and Kemeny is a famous fighter for this stuff, and he said, no, if you try to fire this person for being homosexual, we're going to make a lot of publicity about it, and the NSA is not going to like all this publicity. And finally, they were forced to back down and turn off the heat. But what they required in this conditions, which you can see right here, is that he had to say he would come out to his family, because then it would protect him from being turned. And these are some of the things happening in queer history.